One of the key negotiators for the Clarity Act on the crypto side is saying they are 99% confident that a vote will happen on crypto regulation here in America. We got to get into the clip and better understand what's being said. We also have key Republican leaders on Fox News today talking specifically about clarity and what still needs to happen. I got that and a ton of other updates from across the crypto space, all brand new information. Let's break it down, have a little bit of fun. Kalshi says 40% on clarity passage. The Blockchain Association CEO says 60%, and she's 99% confident that a vote will happen. Her theory: Congress banned staff members from prediction markets months ago, right around when Kalshi and Polymarket odds stopped tracking DC sentiment. Coincidence? She doesn't think so. Here is the clip.
Percent on Kalshi, and I'm saying, vote-wise, I'm like 99% sure we're going to have a vote. Okay. Obviously, a lot of crazy stuff could happen and set that back, but I feel very strongly that we're going to have a vote. As far as passage, I've been at about 60%. Some of that's just gut instinct from years of working in the Senate, being around legislative process, seeing what's happening. The right people are in the room talking about this, so that really does make me feel more confident that we're in the right direction. But whenever people say to me, well, that's not what I'm reading in Polymarket or Kalshi. Well, Congress just about maybe 2 months ago actually banned all of congressional staff from being on prediction markets. So I actually think there might be a correlation here between when Congress said, staff and members can no longer be on prediction markets, and when the prediction markets started to not track what I think is kind of everybody else's opinion in Washington as to where we are with clarity. So that's another one of those where the prediction markets are great, but there are some things that don't work quite right. And I think they're wrong on this account. I think we're going to have a vote, and I feel like we're going to get there on passage.
Remember, Summer Messenger has been a key negotiator with the Blockchain Association on Capitol Hill to try to push crypto regulation forward. Without her help, we probably wouldn't have been this far. Senator Bernie Moreno also said, agreed, it's time to put the Clarity Act on the floor and have a vote this month. If DC Democrats want to put China first and crush innovation in America, let them be on record instead of hiding behind the nonsensical excuses. Let's effing go. He was responding to this Senator Lummis clip. This is likely our last chance to get real legislation and for digital assets on the books before 2030. If we fail to pass the Clarity Act, we are ensuring that another country will write the rules for digital assets, and we spend the next decade catching up. I think this is actually very accurate. If the US isn't able to get the Clarity Act signed into law right now in this moment, it might not happen until 2030. Very few people believe that if Democrats take control of the House, that they will be inclined to continue to push crypto regulation forward. There's voices like Elizabeth Warren's in the Senate that could hold back key leadership on the Democratic side from getting this thing done. We got to use the momentum that we've had and built over the last year in the Senate to push this over the finish line. The time is now. They're going to put it to a floor vote regardless if they can figure out this deal on ethics or not and get people on the record, because there are senators and there are Congress people that are running for re-election here in November. And if they're kind of stopping the advancement of crypto regulation here in America, they're going to have a lot of money against them. Their opponents are most likely going to be pro-crypto, and that's going to be a heavy hill to climb. It's sometimes the path of least resistance here might be the best, but hey, we're going to see how it plays out. Trust me, I will keep track of all this as we always do. Thank you for all your support on the Clarity Act videos. I think we're like one of the #1 channels on YouTube right now tracking all of these updates. Make sure that you guys support all of this. Please like, share, comment. That does amazing things for content like this. And I just greatly appreciate your time, your love, your questions, all of that stuff. And then Eleanor Terrett says, Senator Ron Wyden, he's a Democrat from Oregon, I believe this looks like, is asking Senate leaders to preserve the Blockchain Regulatory Certainty Act as passed by the Senate floor committee in any version of the Clarity Act brought to the Senate floor. It comes amid uncertainty over whether certain key law enforcement groups will accept the BRCA language and whether changes will be needed to win their support, as well as their votes for the Democratic senators like Senator Cortez Masto and Mark Warner. In a letter to John Thune and Senator Schumer, Wyden says the provision would codify existing federal policy by clarifying that non-custodial software developers should not be treated as money transmitters solely for publishing software, while preserving the Department of Justice and FinCEN's ability to pursue illicit actors. Wyden was the Democratic co-sponsor of the standalone BRCA legislation in the Senate alongside Senator Cynthia Lummis. And then here is the clip that a lot of people are talking about right now on X. This is from Fox News, of course. This is Representative French Hill. He's on the Congress side, not on the Senate side. Just want to make sure you know that. Let's get into this.
Congressman, we got to talk about the Clarity Act. We are approaching the one-year anniversary of the House passing the Clarity Act. It's been stuck in the Senate since then. Debate centered around ethical issues in the bill. CFTC Chairman Michael Seelig joined me earlier this week, and here's what he said to me about it. Watch. Is it that the Democrats are stopping the progress because of ethics issues and trying to get specific language in there about President Trump and his family in crypto?
Well, there's certainly some mission creep beyond what's really critical here. We want to set standards and protect consumers, protect investors, and that's something that Democrats and Republicans should be able to get behind. I do think there's a little bit of this creep into ethics and other types of extraneous issues, and they're just derailing this real opportunity to have a bipartisan bill in place. Otherwise, you end up with regulators like me writing all the rules, and I'm sure all the Democrats would prefer to get something in place that's bipartisan.
So, Congressman, I'd love to know your thoughts on what's holding this back. I will be speaking with the vice chairman of Coinbase momentarily. Ryan Van Grack will be joining me in the next hour, but we've already talked about what Jamie Dimon said about the Clarity Act, even though he reluctantly supported where we are right now. You said the Clarity Act will end years of regulatory uncertainty, but we're not certain that this is going to get across the finish line yet because it's stuck in the Senate. What's going on?
Well, that's a problem. I want to thank Gillibrand and Lummis and Bozeman and Scott and many others on both sides of the aisle who want to get to yes. And they've been working with our bill where we got 78 Democrats to support our bill exactly a year ago. We're coming to New York next week to have a field hearing led by Brian Stile, our subcommittee chair on digital assets, to highlight why this is so important to have a market framework. We've got to get beyond concerns that some have about ethics. And I would summarize it like this, Maria. If we passed the Clarity Act last summer, many of the things that people were expressing concern about, meme coin issuance, co-investment, use of exchange, investing in exchanges, all that would be under a market framework of regulation with clarity, no pun intended. And that would provide a lot of transparency to people that are concerned about the Trump family's investments. We've got to look at the big picture here, and we've got to get this market framework in place to be combined with the Genius Act, which is the stablecoin legislation that's already been enacted into law. You can't have a functioning, innovative marketplace and grow this economy on blockchain and use digital assets and tokenization if you don't have both. Stablecoin is like a cell phone not connected to a cell phone network, and the market framework that Mike Seelig talked about is, in fact, that network that we need.
So before I move on to the Housing Act, do you expect that the Senate feels that way, the way you do, and will get this on the floor and pass the Clarity Act soon? You think it'll happen this summer?
I've encouraged Senate leadership to put it on the floor. I think if you schedule a floor date here in the month of July, that will cause these final meetings, these final discussions to take place. You've got to have a deadline in Congress to get people to move and find consensus.
Interesting. The House did send it over to the Senate, the Clarity Act, about a year ago. If they would have passed it sooner, maybe some of the issues that are coming up now would already have been addressed with the actual regulation that would have been put in. Interesting point there. And so this was the interview that she was talking about that was coming up. This is the Coinbase vice chair, says Clarity Act has bipartisan support.
Regulation for this space. And I can tell you firsthand, as a former senior regulator at the SEC, we believe and we embrace the importance of regulation, because regulation and clarity in this space is going to protect investors, it's going to foster innovation, and it's going to allow the U.S. to lead in this space. And so I'm greatly encouraged by what we are seeing with the Clarity Act, because it has that vision in mind. It has customer protections in mind. And maybe even more importantly, it is a bipartisan effort, because what we are seeing on the ground is a concerted group of Democratic and Republican senators working around the clock to get this across the finish line.
Yeah.
All right. Lots of investment as of time, money, energy, you name it, has been put into this. We need to get it done. All right. Lawmakers may drop a new version of the Clarity Act as soon as next week. People following the effort told CoinDesk. Here is what CoinDesk is saying here. This was just put out yesterday. The U.S. Senate legislation that would regulate the crypto industry is wobbling forward in what is likely its final days as a viable effort for 2026, as advocates expect a new draft could emerge as soon as next week for the potential Senate action later this month. The Digital Asset Market Clarity Act has just a few weeks left to advance in the Senate before the chamber's calendar and wider congressional politics leaves it chances near to zero. But those briefed on negotiations say that they've seen some headway, including a new text that could come together and merger of the efforts of the two relevant Senate committees, banking and agriculture. However, legislative staffers signaled that the effort hasn't yet secured Democratic buy-in that it will need, despite much of the latest material representing a response to their concerns. The unified version of the Clarity Act, which is said to by one person to have had more than 70 pages of text added, hasn't yet solidified a position on the major sticking point. A Democrat demand restriction keeping senior government officials, including the president, from maintaining businesses ties with the crypto sector without a compromise on such ethics limits. And several lawmakers have said that they won't vote on the final bill. And this is not just Democrats saying this. There's the top Republicans also mentioning if it doesn't have something around ethics, that they won't vote for it either. So this is a multi-party thing, but it is heavier on the Democratic side. Leave that, definitely. These talks are raised with some specific ideas, such as letting state attorneys general sue for ethics violations. However, progress has slowed to a crawl, according to people familiar with the negotiation. The merged text that may be released next week will not represent a simple combination of the two bills in respective committees voted to approve earlier this year. Both committees' members negotiated on outstanding issues. The Agricultural Committee more so, given that the bill was voted out of the committee on strictly partisan lines, and the updated bill is said to reflect the results of that progress. So in January of earlier this year, the Agricultural Committee moved forward the CFTC side of the bill, and that was directly on party lines. It was 12 Republicans voted to put it through. 11 Democrats voted no on it because they really didn't have an understanding and commitment to go together. Fast forward just, a few months ago, you had the Senate Banking Committee move their version forward with 2 Democrats voting with Republicans to push it forward. And that is what they're talking about here. The bill advocates expect it to reach the Senate floor as soon as next week, July 20th, though lawmakers have a lot of work left to do. And of course, it is around ethics. And we did talk a little bit about that. Michael Selig was on a podcast. Here's what he has to say about Clarity.
The Clarity Act, talking to this future-proof notion of making sure that crypto is here to stay, and the next administration doesn't come and take it all away from us. We want to get in statute, and this has been from the top. The president has pushed for this, and it's in our president's working group report. It's legislation that creates a market structure, just like we have for the prediction markets and for securities markets. We would have exchanges that are federally regulated. And the problem here is that the states, if you look to a state like New York, they're very aggressive against crypto. We're in litigation, for example, with Letitia James on some of these issues. They do not like it, and so we need federal protections for the product and for the exchanges.
Yeah, guys, you're in the shot, guys. Come on, we got Michael Selig here doing an interview, and you guys are chit-chatting by the coffee maker. Get out of the way. I thought that was pretty funny. But listen, regulators are prepared to do all of the work if Congress can't get this done. Obviously, all of that work could be undone with the next president or administration if they are anti-crypto. Mark did say huge. The Clarity Act hasn't passed yet, but we already see where crypto is headed. BlackRock, Franklin Templeton, JP Morgan, DTCC, Swift, all the big boys just completed a sandbox to test how tokenized U.S. money markets could be used as collateral across institutional markets. The blockchain network evaluated here included Hedera, Ethereum, Solana, XRP Ledger, Avalanche, Stellar, Say, Hyperledger, Busso, BNB Chain, and Canton. In simple terms, they tested whether traditional financial assets could move on public blockchain networks instead of legacy systems. Clarity Act or not, this is happening, and it's happening on the ones that we own. So, these are the networks that are testing, guys. All right. You want to know what's going to be extremely popular in the days ahead? It's on the screen there. Can't do much more work for you than that. These are networks that we often talk about in live streams, and I do try to cover Hedera and a few of these other things here in the regular content, but we are moving forward. It doesn't feel like it when you look at the prices of crypto assets, but the market is moving forward. One day soon, we will get out of this slump that we are in, and hopefully we'll be headed to all new time highs for certain crypto assets. And I'm very excited to get there and watch this all unfold. Make sure that you're subscribed. I'll always bring you the best and latest crypto information as we always do. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Have a great weekend. Thank you so much. All right. Aloha.